Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite finds that I found in 2024. I still cannot believe that 2025 is here already and the holidays are over, which I'm actually really sad about because I love the holidays, but I'm not going to dabble into that too much because it's just going to like bring me down to like another whirlwind. But I want to talk about some of my favorite books that I did find in 2024. Now I'm just going to come off right off the bat and say this. I did not read as much as I expected to in 2024, and I just ended up having a really busy year. So I do kind of wish I read more books. So there's not like, it's not like a huge compiled list of books. I'm gonna do like kind of just brief rundowns of my favorite books I've read this past year, and also we're not gonna go like super in depth like synopsis and everything. I just want to literally gush over them and just talk to you guys about them, and hopefully it's enough to persuade you to want to pick it up. And yeah, so these are the books that I genuinely loved in the past year, and I'm looking down a lot because I have all of them listed on my Goodreads. I'm not going to hold up any physical copies because I did not want to go through my bookshelf right now and like look for all of them. So a lot of these I'm going to just pop up on the screen right here or right here. So yeah, I wanted to just go over with them, and don't mind me looking down again because they are listed on here. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first book that instantly popped up and came up to my mind this past year that I had read, and it's actually one of my, I think this is probably my most favorite book in general that I've read this year. And I just think it's a beautiful like masterpiece. It's just a beautiful piece of art. It's called Shark Heart by Emily Haybeck, and so all these books I'm gonna go over, I gave them 5-star reads. This book was such a beautiful, like, poetic piece of art. So I heard Gabby Reeds talk about it at first, and she actually is the one who kind of persuaded me into picking it up, because like hearing her review on it and like seeing that vlog of her talking about it, it seemed like something I'm really interested in. And one thing about me is like I'm obsessed with marine biology. I actually was originally wanting to go to school for marine biology, but fun fact, I get major seasickness. Like, this is gross and like TMI, but I get like projectile vomit seasickness. So that's not the reason why I didn't continue, but that's probably a huge reason as to why I probably can't do it. But yeah, so this book is like, I guess there's like a disease going on in the world where people are slowly turning it into and like mutating into wild animals. So in this particular story, you're following like a husband and wife, and her husband ends up getting a diagnosis where he is slowly turning to a great white shark. And it sounds really weird, like this whole story, like it just sounds like really what's it called, like, what's that word called, abstract. Like everything just sounds really like abstract, and it's hard to grasp, but it doesn't really like jump into this. And some of it you can kind of see as like you try to see it as serious, and some of it sometimes you can see it a little bit humorous, but they do it so well with the story where you kind of like just follow along, like letters written back and forth to the husband and wife, and also just like documentation of like their journey of them and their marriage, and like who they are like before their marriage, and like how it just kind of unfolds to like the final part, the final transformation of him becoming a great white shark. And it's just so weird, but it's so sad and heartbreaking at the same time. And then you're also following like another side character of like someone else who's also like mutating into another animal. And it's honestly like, it was one of the weirdest stories I've ever read, but it was just something that I always remember, and it's like in my head all the time. And so just like, it was pretty emotional, not like where I cried, but it was like where it can tug on some of your emotional strings and like put a different perspective of something you would have never thought about before. So I would genuinely suggest you to pick it up. Like, and it's not a hard read at all. It's like more of like little poem sized excerpts, so they're not like, it's not a whole novel, so you're not gonna get like super in-depth stuff that lasts for chapters. Like, it's a really fast read, like it's super quick, and I loved it. I also love the cover of this book. I think it's absolutely beautiful, and yeah, one of my most favorite reads of this year so far, for sure. Okay, the next one is gonna be Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I do have to admit that this is a pretty popular book, so I do understand that a lot of people talk about this book. I was a little nervous that I wasn't gonna like this because it's a lot of action based, and I'm not an action person when it comes to books, but I literally listened to a certain soundtrack in the background of this book, and it was such a good like cinematic piece. And I kind of see why people do kind of fall for like the breadcrumbs of the romance. There's like barely, like, it's like literally a scuff of romance in the story, but it's enough to make you just like it's just so cute. But one thing I really loved was like the whole heisty feeling. Like if you ever watch like the Oceans movies, which I personally love, I actually like heist movies. I think they're really good and like really cool. And so this book is literally like a fantasy heist movie, and there's like this whole other world system, and it's just seeing about all the different characters, and like you get different perspectives of each character in like the chapters, and they're just seeing their like little group, and just like a bunch of like, not misfits, but you know, like they have different like storylines and personalities and just reactions and dialogue, and then just seeing them all interact together and like what they're all doing together and what they're trying to do for like something overall in the greater good. But it's like, it's almost like a vigilante, like are they good, are they not good? And just hearing the whole storyline, it was so good. Like this story was like literally watching a cinematic movie, and if you played a soundtrack in the background, amazing. If I find the video I played in the background of my book that helped me kind of like dissolve into the reading, I will put it there. But I love the story. I loved like the action in it. I actually really enjoyed the action. It wasn't like too much, but it was like action where you're like you can legit see everything. Like I saw everything visually really well, and I'm not an action reader, but this book provided something so different for me, and I'm so excited to pick up the next one. I had so much fun. So if you do pick it up, I hope you enjoy it, and if you had pick it up, I hope you like it. But if you don't, I can like I can see kind of like why some people it's hard for them to get into, because like it is really action based, but to me it was like action to where it was like cinematic, and it was so good. Like I loved it so much. I loved hearing about the heist and their storylines and what was gonna happen to the characters, and I was like freaking out the entire time if someone was gonna die. Like it was just one of those stories that like kept me on my toes, and I sped through it. I didn't think I was gonna finish it like that, but I loved it so much. The next one is a common one, and I love this story, and it is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And this story, I can see why so many people absolutely love this story. It just is such a like beautiful story, yet heartbreaking at the same time. And it was genuinely a story that like kind of ripped my heart out, but it was just such a good, like it was just such a good story. Like the overall like circle of the story, like how it started, you can follow along Evelyn and then just see like her actual life unfold, and questioning like, you know, the story just has like there's so many different characters. And then like I love Harry's character. He's such a beautiful, like kind, amazing character, and just seeing like how their stories unfold and like where they started, and you also start to hate some of the characters at the same time. Like there was points in the story where I hated Evelyn because of some of the actions she would do and like what she did to get to where she had to be, but then at the same time you have to kind of empathize with her and kind of like have to see like where she's somewhat coming from, and then questioning like everybody and like them as humans and like their interactions, like communicating and why they do the things they do. And also just I love representation in the story, and I love like how they also included like someone questioning sexuality and like how it was deemed in society. And it was just such a good story, like, and it provided like that vintage feel, like nostalgic feel for me. And then also it jumps back into like reality time, like modern time, I guess you can say. But it was just really cool how the whole story came together and everything was like a full circle moment. But it's one of those stories, like, don't read it for a happy story. Like, it's just more of those stories where you're like, okay, I've come to a conclusion with the story and I've accepted it, and this is what the story provided for me. And it's just one of those great stories that like literally put so much emotions, and I like flew through this book. I loved it, and I love Taylor Jenkins Reid's writing style. Like, I think her stories are like really like realistic in a way, like kind of realistic but kind of not, but she writes like so human, and that sounds so weird, but her writing style is just like human, like actual humans making mistakes, having certain thoughts, having certain initiatives. And yeah, this is one of those beautiful stories that were like, it was heartbreaking. You hated the people sometimes, but then you love the story of like the emotions it pulled out of you and the perspective it provided for you. It was just amazing. Like I absolutely loved the story so much. So cool. Okay, the next one is actually just, it's not a novel, but it is, if you ever watched Teen Titans growing up, one of my favorite characters, I always love Beast Boy's character. Like, just to turn into all these kind of animals, that is so cool. Like, that would be the coolest power, that and like mega intelligence. But we follow like, it's just a graphic novel, like Beast Boy pretty much. I think he's like in high school or college, and it's just so cool because like it brought back that nostalgic feeling of like watching Teen Titans when I was like a kid, but then also getting to see them like kind of grown up, and then you kind of see like some romance involved in the story. And I don't know, it's just a really nicely done graphic novel to where you kind of like love the characters even more. I can't really go in depth about it because it's just a graphic novel, but I really like this graphic novel a lot, and I genuinely love the illustrations. I mean, it's a graphic novel, but it was really good. Like I really liked getting like more of like it's almost like a fanfic. I don't know, I guess it might be like a fanfic story of Beast Boy's character, but it was so much fun. Hold on, I gotta switch my feet because my feet are hurting. Okay, I gotta sit a little bit lower, so if the mic is like right in my face like this, it's because my feet hurt and I can't sit on my feet anymore longer. Like I can't. I'm hurting. I'm literally hurting. But yeah, I love this story. It was really good. It was like a nice like little illustrative like break from novels and reading. So if you have contemplated picking it up, and if you are a Teen Titans fan, especially a Beast Boy fan, I would suggest you picking up this one and the Teen Titans Beast Boy Loves Raven. Love that one. Probably my favorite one the most. So I ship them so much. But to be honest, when I was younger, I used to ship like Starfire and Beast Boy just because they were like my two favorite characters. But as I get older, I think I like Raven a lot. So yeah, I love them a lot. I love them so much. Okay, we're gonna jump into 2, and it's the last 2 books in the trilogy of the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. The first one wasn't my 5-star read, it was the second and third one. So the second one is The Ballad of Never After and A Curse for True Love. Oh my gosh, like I literally read these stories and I was like reminded about like why I love reading. Like I love Jax's character, I love Evangeline, I loved how fairy tale the story was. I can tell like it's more like a young adult read, honestly, but I loved it so much. The romance just, this is the type of romances I like. I just love this type of romance and like fantasy based stories where it's like literally a fairy tale. So good, like so amazing. And it reminded me of like watching my old like animes when I was younger, like Sailor Moon and like Tuxedo Mask, and like having the prince and princesses. Like so good. I loved it so much, and the storyline was actually genuinely really interesting, but I was mainly there for the romance because the romance was just so freaking cute. Like Pet, so good. So I love this story. I literally squealed about it to my boyfriend a million times. There was one part I actually cried, which not like but like tears came about, and it was a part that you wouldn't think you'd cry on, but I think I related to it because of, I'm not gonna go into it because I'm not gonna spoil it for you guys, but there was a part in it where it kind of made me tear up. Like, so this story, like it was just I fled. I literally just ran through these books. Like, so good. I loved it so much, and it was so cool to see like the Caraval world but just different characters. And I literally love Evangeline so much. Like, I love her character. She kind of annoyed me sometimes. Okay, I don't know if I want to say Evangeline. I don't know if I loved Evangeline so much, but I did love Jax's character so much. Like, I started loving this little trilogy so much to the point that I was watching like fan art on like videos on YouTube and Pinterest, and they did something for me. Like, they provided that obsession I had. So good. It was like a fairy tale young adult read, and it like provides like a nostalgic fairy tale book. So it was so good. I loved it so much. I'm like freaking out. Okay, sorry. I think my memory card ran out of space, so I had to kind of switch that out real fast. Okay, the next one I actually read during the Magical Readathon, and it was They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. I know this is like an older book, and a lot of people, this was like one of the OG books, like I think on like BookTube, but this story had like such cool like concept. I mean, I guess it's not really cool because pretty sad actually, but the whole like following the two different characters and like having things unfold with them, and then them admitting these things, and they're both like, they both get a call that they are going to die at a certain time, and then just seeing them follow along that story, like it's like you genuinely get told what the story is about. It's like, and also the title, but you're still interested to see like, are they gonna die at the end? And I'm not gonna spoil it for you guys, but it just was such a good book. Like it provided like something that I know I would have loved reading, especially if I read it in like high school and college. And I really had so much enjoyment like reading about these like two different characters and like their lives just like meshing, and like how different they were, but like how much they coexisted really well. And then just following them just being like living their last moments, and like it was really sad too. Like there was parts, like to me a good book is something that can pull a lot of emotions out of me, and that book did provide like a lot of emotional like pulling out of me, so I enjoyed it so much. I actually like kind of see why this like became a popular story, and just the whole like overall like how they created this, it just seems like a movie. Like it's really cool that someone created this whole like concept in a story, and like how there's like a company that calls you and tells you when you're gonna die, and then you kind of hear like how this world comes about with this whole concept. And it was just really good. Like it was actually a really good story and really easy to read. I do think it's a young adult, but it was super good. I loved it so much. I actually feel like this is one of those stories that like kind of stuck with me, so this would definitely be like one of the books I've read this year that I like. Okay, I don't know about top tier, but it was like really good. Okay, the next one is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, and I've talked about this. I have like a reading vlog devoted to this, but I thought this was like such a good story. I love the characters so much. I actually really liked how he depicted like these characters. Like he added a lot of personality to them and made them like humans. Some people said they didn't like the characters, but I like the characters a lot. My favorite character obviously is Rocky. That's like a given, like without a doubt. But I really liked seeing like how this was kind of like portrayed as like something that could actually kind of happen in the world. And it's so funny because literally last night before bed we were watching like a space thriller, so it like freaks me out sometimes, and I think it's because the less I know, the scarier it is to me. So like some of these things are like, I don't know anything about space, like I don't know anything about, you know, all that stuff, like the science behind it. Life science, biology, love it. Astrology or astronomy, not astrology, that's different, I do like astrology, but like astronomy, chemistry, I'm completely clueless, like you're gonna lose me. But it was just really cool to see like this kind of like somewhat situation as to like how humans are and the humanity we are when it comes to society, and like what's deemed as like what is ethically right and what is like, it's almost like bioethics, I guess. And it was just really interesting to see the characters and like be put in a position where you're like, you can create a perspective of something that you're probably not going to go through, but something you can put in a perspective of like what you can do and like see about these characters. Like overall, all these characters are different, everybody from the world is different, but to see us all come together when we're all dealing with one conflict, and we just have to sometimes put our differences aside to literally examine this conflict and realize we're all humans. We literally are, we're all made of the same like body parts, the same like cells. I mean, not exactly the same cells, but like, you know, like we're all in the human species, and yet we just attack each other like we are just like primal animals, which I think is kind of crazy, because sometimes I think even primal animals, it coexist a lot better than some humans have been existing, I mean, lately. But I'm not going to go into in depth about that. But it is heartbreaking to see, you know, like question humanity, and then, you know, like when you read a book, you want to see something about humanity. So this book really provided that like different perspective for me, because I wanted to jump out of the world for a little bit and just read something about a different world and just have a perspective of humanity and what was going on in like society, and like what they did to like relieve this conflict. And then you were really curious to see what was going to happen to the main protagonist and Rocky, of course. Like if you read the story, you're going to know who Rocky is, and you're going to love Rocky. You are going to love Rocky, because if you don't love Rocky, don't come to my channel. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, like, how can you not like Rocky? Like, I love Rocky so much. It was such a good story. I love this story so much. It reminded me of like The Martian, or like, I guess kind of like Interstellar, but more like The Martian, you know, like about survival. And you get to like, I thought it was really cool how you get to unfold why the main character was in space and like why he woke up there, and it's not what you would have thought. Like you would have probably thought like, oh, it's gonna be this, like obviously, but then as the story unfolds, it's actually unexpected. And to me, those are like my favorite type of books, the ones that are unexpected. So I really enjoyed like hearing something that I didn't expect, and it was really cool and interesting just to follow along like this, like the main protagonist, and see like what was going to happen to the human race. And it was really good. It was actually really fun, and like I can tell the author put so much thought into the story and created like an actual world and put so much like knowledge into the story as well. Like he did a lot of research. I can tell he did so much stuff, and I thought that the author was actually like, I don't know, an astronaut or something, but I don't think he is. I was reading about him and I was watching an interview about him, but I think that he reached out to people in NASA. I think I could be wrong, so don't quote me on all this stuff, but he did so much research, just like how he did when he created The Martian. I believe he created The Martian. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, it was so good, well done, and amazing. Like I love the story and I cannot wait to watch the movie. Okay, and lastly, it's gonna be a Christmas book. I did have a couple 5-star Christmas books, but I don't think they're like, they were 5 stars, but they weren't like life altering. But I think the one I'm gonna remember is In the Holidays by Christina Lauren. And even though it's a holiday read, it didn't feel like just a holiday read. I feel like it was a lot more depth to this book than I expected, and I really enjoyed it. So it's supposed to be like a Groundhog Day type of story, and you would think it's gonna be really repetitive, but it wasn't. And the characters were just so real. I love all the details that Christina Lauren put into the story, like how they just kind of created like an actual perspective of like a real person. And as you can tell from my reviews, I love books where they make the characters human, like they make them real. They add like personality to them, not just like,
oh, this is a good-looking woman and a good-looking man, and they fell in love.
Like I love when there's like actual depth to the characters and like real life thoughts, and like a lot more like severity into the story sometimes. Not like where it's crazy severe, but like where they're like they have actual conflicts and you can kind of see why they're like troubled or bothered. And this story just was like, I think the overall thing I really loved about the story was what can I have like a brain fart. I love the writing style. The writing style in this story, I loved it because I loved how much detail they put into the characters. I love the storylines that the characters have, like how the families, where normally when I read books about like found families, it's hard for me to really grasp, other than Harry Potter, but like it's hard for me to grasp a found family like story. I've never really had one where I was like, other than Harry Potter, but I never had one where it was like, this is like a found family. But this one was really like her actual family, but then also a family that was like a found family because they all coexisted together and they were just like her parents' friends growing up, and you can just tell like their own storyline, their own conflicts, their own issues growing up. And it was just like really crazy because one thing I've noticed, and this kind of getting like really deep, but when you're younger, you see like your aunts and uncles, for example, and you just think like, oh, you know, you look at them on a surface level and you just see them as like husband and wife. But then as you get older, you start learning things, you start knowing things on a different perspective in a psychological sense. And it's just crazy when you can see it in a different perspective as an adult. And the things that you would have heard when you were younger, you would have been like shocked. But as you get older, these are the things that you're like you see it, like I said, in a psychological sense. And I think that's crazy to me, like being able to look at things in a different perspective. And this story kind of gave me that like kind of mindset a little bit. Also, it was just, I loved the romance in the story. Like I love the main protagonist and the love interest, and just like the anxiety of like time and like it's slipping away. And then also like there was little moments in the story that I feel like I will always remember. Like there was a part where she's walking on the lake and like she looks up in the night sky. Obviously that's not enough to persuade you by talking about this little part, but I just loved how they depicted that part, like when she went on the boat and she could just see the night sky and it was like cold, and it just depicted it in a way where it's like a memory that I'm gonna remember for some reason. And yeah, I just really love the story, and I think it's because I love Christina Lauren's writing. I love how they write their books. I loved how they write Love in Other Words. I mean, I've only read, this is my second book I read by them, but I can tell I like their books. And yeah, this story was actually like a really good story to like finish off 2024. Even though it was a holiday read, it still gave me like that, it gave me like the winter holiday feels, but it gave me like a perspective of like where I'm not gonna just remember it being a holiday book. I'm probably gonna forget that it was a holiday book and just remember the characters and remember just like the little moments in the story and like little details in the story, like referencing the cults and stuff. Like I don't know, I love that stuff. So yeah, that was a 5-star read for sure, and it was not repetitive, being a Groundhog Day thing. It was really good, really loved it. So yeah, okay, so that is it. Like, this is not a huge list. I feel like a lot of people had like the 100 books I've read in 2024 that are my absolute favorite, but these aren't all the books I've read. Obviously, these are just like some of the books that are like the books that, if I were to look back at the past year, these are like the books that I feel like were special to me, and they provided that 5-star feel, but they were like special books that I will remember, and like their stories that I probably randomly bring up to people. And these are what these books provided for me. I know some of these are like common books and books that have already been around for a while, but I still wanted to share them with you guys because I love talking about my favorite books. I love talking about books, but I love talking about my favorite books, and it's just like being able to like gush over them and vent about them to you guys, and it's just one of my most favorite things. So yeah, thank you so much for letting me just completely blab and yap about all these books. But I had so much fun just talking about them, and I do think this past year, even though I didn't read a lot, I do think I found some like really life-changing books, like life-altering books. So even though these aren't like really heavy books, but I love these books. I love my past year reads, and yeah, I'm happy with the list that was curated. So but thank you so much for watching. I also just want to say, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you can be up to date with more videos. I try to post every Wednesdays and Saturdays. And thank you so much for coming back around, and I will see you guys on the next video.
When we wake, hear the birds and see the sun. Side by side our fears are done. All the good times just begun.